Welcome to Feel Better, Live Better. I'm your host, Stephanie Bridges, and each week we talk about simple ways to fuel your body, free your mind, and create the energy and confidence you need to live well. Let's get started. If I asked you what rejection is, you might say it's when someone tells me no. And sometimes it is, but usually the problem isn't just someone saying no. Rejection is when you try or you put yourself out there and you don't get the response you expected. You say something, reach out, share an idea, or try something new. You take a risk, and before you even realize what you're thinking, your body is already having a reaction. And so that's when you feel embarrassed and you have that feeling of wanting to hide. And maybe you start blaming yourself. Those moments planted beliefs that have probably followed you into adulthood, into your relationships, your motherhood, into a business that you're trying to build. So many aspects of our lives. Beliefs like, I should just play small. It's a lot safer. What I have to say doesn't matter. I'm not important. People don't like me or respect me. Things like that. Without realizing it, we start living our lives trying to avoid that pain because it just feels too hard. I know this really personally. Rejection has been a lens I've lived through for as long as I can remember. I can look back and see the stories I held on to as proof that it's true. I get rejected. Stories that kept me believing I wasn't enough, that I didn't belong, people didn't like me, something was wrong with me, that something about me made me get overlooked. So when I poured my heart into something or made myself vulnerable and got silence or ridicule, my nervous system took note of that, and now when something creates the same feeling, whether it's the same kind of situation or something my logical brain doesn't see a connection to, but my subconscious does, it says, okay, this is happening again, and we didn't like it last time. So now we're just going to shut down and avoid it so we don't have to feel the pain, the shame, the embarrassment, the rejection. Rejection doesn't just feel disappointing, it feels threatening. As humans, we're wired for connection. Ever since we were born, connection's been important. Being responded to, being part of things, being wanted, it all meant that safety. If you think about it, rejection feels physical. It hurts, feels uncomfortable. You get a pit in your stomach, your breathing changes, your chest might actually physically hurt, your palms sweat, or you feel tingling sensations in your body. And when something feels that way, your brain's going to jump in and protect you because it learned, that felt bad. I don't want to feel that way again. So I'm going to avoid doing or saying things like that in the future. So later on, when a situation even resembles one of those times, your brain sends up red flags warning you that it's dangerous. So you avoid situations so you can avoid that feeling. But most people aren't actually afraid of rejection itself. They're afraid of what rejection means about them, that they aren't enough, that something about them is flawed, that they aren't worthy of love and support and validation and success. It's because your brain interprets rejection through the stories it already has. Stories that have been shaped by past experiences, what you were told or not told, painful memories, beliefs you picked up and never questioned, and your brain believes the stories it was handed. And that's what creates the fear response, the stuck feeling, the hesitation. It's not that something's wrong now, it's that your system learned something once and then it never got updated. When rejection has hurt before, most people don't wait for it to happen again. They get ahead of it by rejecting themselves first. Not consciously, but instinctively. Because it feels safer. And because it actually feels like they have the control. If I decide not to try, no one else gets to decide for me. If I decide it's not a good idea, I don't have to feel shut down by someone else. If I pull back first, I don't have to feel unwanted or rejected. On the surface, this can look like you're just being realistic or cautious. It sounds like, I just want to think about it for a little bit longer. Or, now's probably not the right time. Or, I don't want to bother anyone, I don't want to seem pushy. And it can show up as not following up because you don't want to seem like you're being annoying. You don't say when something hurt because it's not worth making a big deal out of. Not asking for what you want because you don't want to seem needy. Not going somewhere and then you're just making the excuse that you probably wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway. Or not joining the conversation because you don't believe you have anything to add. Not sharing your opinion because you think it's not important. Or using the excuse of being tired when you're leaving early from somewhere, but really you just don't want to deal with feeling awkward. All of that is self-rejection. So let's talk for a minute about human design and where it fits in. Human design doesn't tell you whether you will feel rejected or not. What it shows is where rejection is most likely to show up and what it threatens inside of you. So different parts of the human design chart process rejection through different fears. Your identity center is the biggest one. If someone has an open or undefined identity center, rejection often feels personal in a really deep way. Not just, that didn't work out, but what does this say about me? And rejection can shake their sense of who they are and where they feel like they belong. If the identity center is defined, rejection still hurts, but it's less likely to turn into an identity crisis. It feels more situational than personal. The ego or the will center has a lot to do with our feeling of worth. When this center is open, rejection often gets translated as, I'm not enough, I didn't prove myself, I don't have what it takes. So rejection can trigger overworking and overgiving or pulling back entirely to avoid feeling inadequate again. When it's defined, rejection is less likely to collapse your sense of self-worth, even if it's frustrating. The emotional center affects how long rejection sticks around. People with emotional definition feel rejection in waves. It comes up, it moves through, then settles, and they don't think much about it anymore. People with an open or undefined emotional center often absorb and amplify rejection. It can linger a lot longer and feel confusing or just replay over and over in your mind. The throat center is affected by rejection around being seen or heard. If someone has an open throat, rejection can feel like, I shouldn't have spoken up. I shouldn't have shared that with anyone. I shouldn't have drawn attention to myself. And so they might reject themselves first by staying quieter. The spleen center processes safety. People with a strong splenic awareness often feel rejection immediately in their body. Tightness, a gut reaction, a sense that something isn't safe. And that can be protective, but it can also make rejection feel urgent or threatening. even when nothing bad is actually happening. And then we have the root center. This one affects pressure. If the root is open or undefined, rejection can feel overwhelming, like I can't handle this, I need to stop this feeling. And that can lead to rushing decisions or avoidance to get relief from that pressure. So these differences in the human design chart are why rejection doesn't feel the same for everyone. Human design gives us ideas of where rejection might feel strongest, but subconscious release helps release what we've stored from past experiences. We're working with the part of your system that decided what the things that happened meant. When we clear those strong emotions, rejection can still happen in life, but it doesn't rewrite the story you tell yourself about who you are. So let's get into our subconscious release for this episode. First, if you've never done a session with me before, it's super easy. I will say deep breath in. You take a breath and hold your breath. And while you're holding your breath, I will say the statement. You repeat it silently in your mind, and then you can breathe out. All right, so let's get started. Deep breath in. I release all fear with, when I put myself out there and it doesn't go well, something is wrong with me. Deep breath in. I release all embarrassment with, when I put myself out there and it doesn't go well, something is wrong with me. Deep breath in. I release all dread with, when I put myself out there and it doesn't go well, something is wrong with me. Deep breath in. I release all insecurity with, when I put myself out there and it doesn't go well, something is wrong with me. Deep breath in. I release all blocks to self-love with, when I put myself out there and it doesn't go well, something is wrong with me. Deep breath in. I release all blocks to creativity with, when I put myself out there and it doesn't go well, something is wrong with me. And deep breath in. I release all blocks to worthiness with, when I put myself out there and it doesn't go well, something is wrong with me. And deep breath in and out. Okay, deep breath in. I release all nervousness with, it's safer to hold back than to risk being rejected again. Deep breath in. I release all invisibility with, it's safer to hold back than to risk being rejected again. Deep breath in. I release all shame with, it's safer to hold back than to risk being rejected again. Deep breath in. I release all unpredictability with, it's safer to hold back than to risk being rejected again. Deep breath in. I release all blocks to self-expression with it's safer to hold back than to risk being rejected again. Deep breath in. I release all blocks to security with it's safer to hold back than to risk being rejected again. And deep breath in. I release all blocks to openness with it's safer to hold back than to risk being rejected again. And deep breath in and out. All right, let's do some fill-ups now. So we're going to do this the same way. Deep breath in. I'm so happy and grateful. It's safe for me to separate what happens from who I am. Deep breath in. I'm so happy and grateful I can try, speak, share, and show up without it defining my worth or my value. Deep breath in. I'm so happy and grateful. I trust myself even when things don't go the way I hoped. And deep breath in. I'm so happy and grateful. It's safe for me to try, even when I don't know how it will turn out. And deep breath in and out. The only real rejection is rejecting your own potential. You don't need to be chosen. You need to choose yourself. You don't get stronger by being accepted. You get stronger by being willing to try, even when the answer might be no. Fear will always be a part of life, but it shouldn't be the thing that decides whether you try or not. You don't need a guarantee that it will work out. You need the courage to keep going. The people who move forward aren't the ones who never get rejected. They're the ones who keep going when they do. Hiding from rejection is hiding from your life. If you want to go deeper into this, I have a whole subconscious release session. It's pre-recorded. You can do it on your own time, and we are going to clear even more beliefs. So just go to livingthebestyou.com/rejection, and you can sign up for that session, and you can start feeling better today. You can also grab my free guide called Rewrite the Script at livingthebestyou.com/rewrite. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for joining me today on Feel Better, Live Better. If you're ready to take the next step, be sure to go to my website, livingthebestyou.com. You'll find free resources and the support you need to accomplish your goals. And if this podcast connects some dots for you, please follow and share with a friend. Until next time, remember, when you feel better, you really do live better.